Just going to wait for people to pop up. Oh, there's someone on here already. How are you doing, sir? Pleased to meet you. Oh, we got a second person. Hello, hello. Welcome to our Saturday night hangout here. Oh, 6 people. Awesome. That's basically a party. Once you have 6 people, 7 people. Oh, hello, sir. How are you? 7 people, 8 people. Hello. Make yourself at home. Let's see here. Hello. Got 5 people up on here. Now 4. I guess you guys thought I was going to talk about the end of the world. Now 3. Yep, they thought I was going to talk about the end of the world, guys. Is this chat even working? Live chat. 60. No, allow live chat to replay. Now 5 people. Are these is hold on, is this chat thing working? I have no idea. End stream. Is this chat thing? Can somebody put a comment and let me know if this thing is working? I have no idea if this chat thing is working. Let's see here. Let's see. Edit, live chat, enable live chat, save. Oh, there you guys are. Hello, Joshua. Hello, Christian Estrada. Emmanuel Shahid. Hello, sir. Romeo de Emilio Sanchez. Hi. Zakhar Michov. Shalom. I'm curious, Midichov, are you from Ukraine? I'm just curious. Hess family. Hello. Thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Hess. Hello, Emmanuel. Hello, Michiov. Hello, Emilio. It is working. Oh, okay, it's working. Great. It's working. Great. Ah, you are Ukrainian. Awesome. That's so cool. Siberia Kozak. Oh, that's so cool. Are you living in Ukraine, or have you immigrated out of that country? I really like some of the Ukrainian cooking. I like borscht. Beet borscht is delicious. I actually started growing beets so I could just make my own borscht and pickle my own beets, actually. Edmond Rousseau, hello, sir. Kip Wilkson, hello. Helligbloed, hello, sir. Helligbloed. Your name sounds Dutch. Are you Dutch? Are you from the Netherlands? For real ortho. In the U.S., Northeastern Siberian Kozak. Very, very cool. Kozak. My dad is not here at the moment. Ah, Netherlands. Okay. Yeah, when I saw bloed, isn't that, it means blood, right? It's a Dutch way of saying blood. So I assumed you were from the Netherlands. Where's Gandalf the Grey? He's in the mountains. He's looking for the ring. Just reading the new book. Great book, very well researched. Thank you. AKA Don. Well, yes, I know. He's not here at the moment, actually. Fast Joe, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Oh, very cool. You know, I was in New Mexico years ago. I went to this place. It was called Rudizio, I think. It's a lot of mountains and Native Americans there. And I remember going to this house full of college students. And this house was in the middle of nowhere, up in the mountains. And the old man who owned the house was like, whatever you guys do, don't go out at night. Native Americans are out there. Felt like I was in a movie, like one of those spaghetti westerns. I have thoroughly enjoyed your videos about Jewish history and the works of Josephus, Miss Hess. Oh, very cool. Very cool. I really love looking into Josephus's work, and I really enjoy talking about Josephus. I think talking about Josephus is really where it becomes fun, because you know when you read something, it's never fun just to read something and then keep it in your mind. I think it was St. Thomas Aquinas who said that gaining knowledge is like a pot of water that's boiling. Eventually the water has to spill over. Eventually the water will spill over as long as it's boiling. And that's what knowledge is. You keep building up knowledge. Eventually it has to spill over, and you have to talk about it, because it's keeping it in, as there's no fun. Los Alamos. Okay. Yeah, New Mexico, Los Alamos, yes. Yes. So yeah, I enjoy talking about Josephus, learning new things. I think that anyone who's really interested in the New Testament, really interested in learning about the New Testament and learning about the life of Christ and what Christ said and the struggle that Christ was in with the Jewish authorities, I think anyone who's interested in those topics should read Josephus's History of the Jewish Wars. That book, or books, I should say, it's a volume of books. There's 7 books. That volume. Hello, Amanda. That volume of books really corroborates and elaborates on things that are mentioned in the New Testament. For example, Pontius Pilate is in the New Testament. Josephus talks about Pontius Pilate. The temple is talked a lot about in the New Testament. And the temple is a huge focus in Josephus's books. And Jesus talks about the Pharisees, and the Pharisees are mentioned in Josephus's books. And there ends up being a struggle in Josephus's literature on. There ends up being a struggle between the Pharisees and the Zealots, and Josephus talks a great deal about this. The Pharisees in the temple, they were led by Ananus. Real name really was Hanan ben Hanan, and he was leading the temple. He was basically the leader of the established religious order. And then you have the Zealots, and the Zealots were the competing faction. They were vying for who was going to rule over the temple. I actually got a cold. Was it over a week ago? And I must say, it's been like 2 weeks. When I first got it, I'm telling you, it felt like I got COVID. I said, oh, I hope I didn't get COVID. So I started feeling a sore throat. And then the next morning, when I got up, I had difficulty breathing. And I felt just all this phlegm building up here. And I'm like, oh my God, I got the COVID. But then the next day, it got better and I could breathe better. But now I feel pretty normal. It's just a cough and a stuffy nose. But I did make a stir fry today, and I made it extremely spicy. I put dried chilies, I put a chili infused oil, and just coated the meat with chili and garlic and ginger and just fresh green onions. Felt a lot better after eating that stuff. Chili really does help. Israel's approach to Gaza looks like a fire sale where everything must go. When do you think the conflict will end? I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't think that how do I say this? I'm not one of these people who will praise the bombing of a country. I don't praise that. Even if it's necessary, I don't praise it. I used to be like that. But then I think, what if I was living there? So I try not to take pleasure in the death of other people, even though sometimes I think, oh, they really deserve it. Firebomb was dumb bombs. I think that Israel, the Muslims and the Jews, they have this eye for an eye mentality. So something happens, people get bombed. And Hamas launched over 200 rockets into Syria. into Israel. Sorry, I said Syria. Into Israel, and the Israelis said, "Okay, we're going to bomb you back," and they bombed the hell out of Gaza. Thoughts on the vax? I think, okay, my God, the vax. This is my opinion on the vaccine. Okay, vaccine for the most part works. Some people got bad side effects. Take at your own risk. That's my opinion on the vaccine. 2,000? You mean like 2,000 rockets? I didn't read it was 2,000 rockets. I read that Hamas launched over 200. Maybe that was the initial phase, but now it's been more. I don't know. I've been actually more focused on the internal struggle within Israel more than anything. I think to reference Netanyahu, that's actually more dangerous than the war with Hamas. How long one needs to show the other cheek? That's a good question. I think when it comes to war, I mean, you have to do what you have to do when it comes to war. Japan, great example, was a very serious enemy, and it was an enemy that was willing to fight to the end, and so America had to use a nuke to cripple them. So when it comes to turning the other cheek, Augustine and Aquinas and Robert Bellarmine, they all dealt with this. So turning the other cheek is something that is supposed to be internal. If I turn the other cheek, so St. Paul was smacked, right? There's a story in the book of Acts where a Pharisee or a scribe walks to Paul and smacks him. And Paul doesn't turn the other cheek. He says, "Why did you smack me?" And he actually tells them, you're just a bunch of whitewashed tombs or something like that. But Paul doesn't turn the other cheek. And then there's a story where the Jews come up and they say, "We will not eat and we will not sleep until St. Paul is dead." And St. Paul knew that they wanted to kill him. He knew that there was an attempt at taking his life. And St. Paul didn't say, "Well, I'll just turn the other cheek and die." No, St. Paul went to the Romans. He went to the authorities. And when he was with the authorities, the Romans said, "Oh, you're a Roman citizen and these people want to murder you. Oh, well, we'll put an army of 200 people to protect you." And there was an army of over 200 people armed with swords and spears protecting St. Paul from the Jews who wanted to murder him. And if anyone tried to attempt to kill Paul, there's no doubt in my mind that those Roman soldiers would have acted. They would have killed the threat, or they would have subdued the threat somehow. Most likely killed them, because that's how things worked in those days. People killed you. There was no mace or tasers in those days. And even those don't really work that well. So Paul didn't turn the other cheek, and Jesus, when Jesus saw soldiers, when he saw the centurion, he didn't say, "Oh, you're killing people," right? He didn't say, "You're killing people. You got to stop what you're doing." He said, "This man's got better faith than all the people in Judea." So what does it mean to turn the other cheek? Bellarmine, Augustine, they all dealt with this subject. It's already been answered. It's already been researched and inquired into and concluded. What it means is an internal release from hatred. That's what it means. An internal release from hatred, where you are able to let go of hatred. You don't hold it in. You don't have grudges. And this is something that I'm guilty of myself. I think, I don't want to say we're all guilty of it. Like, I'm talking about myself. I'm guilty of this, right? Hatred, anger, all these things. It's very difficult to let go. Even if you have to use force, you don't do so out of hatred. A big example of this that you can see in real life, in real time, really, is police body cam videos. You see these cops, man, they're dealing with threats all the time, and sometimes they have to kill people. But they don't hate the person. Even though they had to kill that person, they don't hate that person. There's no hatred. So what turning the other cheek was speaking of was releasing yourself, freeing yourself from hatred, and understanding that There's more to life than holding on to grudges. But that is the great battle, the great internal battle that we are all in. It had to you. Oh God! See, I knew if I was going to bring up Japan, I'm gonna get. Oh, I knew it. I'm gonna get the Catholics getting mad at me. It had to use a nuke on the two most populous Catholic places. That's okay. Let's discuss. Okay, you want to discuss that? Let's discuss that. Let's discuss the Catholic in Japan issue. The Japanese Catholic authorities, for one thing, were very corrupt. In the Catholic churches in Japan, I know you probably don't know this, but in the Catholic churches in Japan, Catholics were made to bow towards the emperor every single mass. They don't teach you this stuff, but this is I looked into this myself. Like, what about the Catholics in Japan? You had to look towards the emperor every mass and bow down to this emperor who was considered a god. And Catholic authorities, Catholic Japanese priests, they enforced this. They encouraged it. There's a great story that you can look into. In Fiji, was it Fiji or Papua New? I think it was Papua New Guinea, one of those countries. There was a story of a priest who was he was a Catholic priest, and the Japanese invaded his country. Pretty sure it was Papua New Guinea. And they invaded his country, and the Japanese priests came because there was a large Catholic community here. And they told the native priest, they say, you have to bow towards the emperor. And he said, I ain't going to do that. Nope, no, sir, not going to do that crap. And he ended up losing his head. So, I mean, when you talk about Catholics in Japan, what do you really, I don't know, what are you really referring to? My God, this is the problem with people. You mention one thing, like you're not even talking about this subject. You mention one thing and you got to hear the whole lecture about why you're wrong. Hello, MRJCH24. You're a New Zealander, right? Kiwi, right? Truman was a Freemason. Okay. America did not have to use a nuke. The Japanese already wished to surrender. They were asking that the emperor would be unharmed. Blah, 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 blah. Hello, 117 rebel. Israel will destroy themselves within them. Yes, that I believe. Here's my advice to the Palestinians, because Palestinians, they have their own problems. Here's my advice. For one, stop supporting terrorism. Stop praising terrorism because it doesn't make you look good and nobody supports your cause. Secondly, you don't have the upper hand. Palestinians don't have the upper hand. They are in the most unadvantaged position ever. They're at the point where certain Palestinians living in certain areas like Sheikh al-Jarrah, for one example, Israel can say, hey, you built an extension. The Israeli government can say, hey, you built an extension to your house. It's illegal. Anyone can now move in, and you got a bunch of settlers moving into your property. And there's nothing you can do about it. And they're sitting there dancing the Hava Hava right in front of you every single day. Imagine that, right? Imagine that, guys. So what do? Palestinians should all leave Israel. That's my opinion. Just leave. Just leave the whole thing. Stop supporting terrorism and leave Israel. I know that's never going to happen, but that's my advice. Do you know what would happen, though, if there were no Palestinians in Israel, no quote-unquote Arabs? They're not really Arabs. They're really just a bunch of Islamized, Christianized Greeks and mixed with some Semitic people. But nonetheless, here's what would happen. Jews are going to kill each other because there's probably more hatred between right and left-wing Jews than there are between Palestinians and Israelis. Probably more hatred. They really hate each other. So they probably would just end up killing each other. If you don't believe me, just look at the Roman-Jewish war. The Romans were the big enemy, right? Remember? They're the enemy. Jews ended up killing each other more so than fighting the Romans. You are so well read. Thank you. I try. I really try. I'm not like the best, most well read person, but I do try. Palestinians, you mean the Bedouins from Egypt and Jordan? Um, some of them are Bedouins and some of them are Egyptians, but Palestinians are similar to Jews in the sense that they're very genetically diverse. Jews are genetically diverse. I mean, think about it. The Jews were living in Persia for centuries. They were living in Europe for millennia, living in Arabia, living in Syria, living in Lebanon, living in North Africa, Spain. They were mixing everywhere they went. So there's a lot of racial diversity. That's why people in Israel, there's such a diversity of different faces in Israel. Some Israelis look very European. Some Israelis look very Middle Eastern, very Semitic. Some Israelis look African because they came from Ethiopia. Palestinians are very similar in that sense. You have Palestinians who look African. You have Palestinians who look Egyptian. You have Palestinians who look European. You have Palestinians who look Slavic. You have Palestinians who look Turkic. You have Palestinians who look Oriental because of the Turkic mixture. My family, from the Middle East, is very, very diverse. For example, my great grandmother or great great grandmother looked Asian, and she had slanted eyes, and she was Uthmani, she was Ottoman, she was Turkic. And then you have my great grandfather who looked Circassian. He married a woman who was Jordanian. So there's just a lot of mixture there, a lot of intermixture there. There's Palestinians are very racially diverse people. Some of the most racially diverse people in the world. Truman dropped the nuke to become a Freemason from Zionists to Japan. Okay, I would love to see evidence to prove this. Until then, I've heard this a million times. How is it possible you are still single? Oh man, that's $1 million question. I don't know. Even if there wasn't a single Catholic in Japan using nukes on civilians, it was still immoral. Well, you should also tell the Japanese that, because the Japanese butchered tens of millions of people in their imperial war to invade and control Asia. I mean, the Japanese, they butchered millions of people in China, raped hundreds of thousands of women. They invaded the Philippines. I mean, come on. They were made. You know what? Stop it with this Japan insanity stuff. When the Japanese controlled the Philippines, they were literally using Catholic seminaries as rape houses. Called them comfort zones, comfort women. They were raping women in monasteries and in seminaries. They were using churches as rape houses. So just kind of reflect on your sympathies. Watch who you sympathize with is what I would recommend. Should Christians support building the third temple? I'm going to go on a limb here. No, they shouldn't. Third temple. Let's see. You have these cultists who say there's going to be a third temple, and we're going to be sacrificing lambs and goats again. Lambs and goats? Wait, I thought Jesus was the sacrifice. So why are we sacrificing animals? Doesn't make any sense. Julian the Apostate, Roman emperor who left Christianity and turned to paganism and occultism. Julian the Apostate wanted to build the third temple. You can read this yourself. Look it up. Julian the Apostate, the third temple. Do you know what happened? Literally, balls of fire from the sky hit the Jews as they were building the temple. And this was not recorded by a Christian historian, by the way. This was recorded by a pagan historian by the name of Marcellinus. I know because I have a copy of Marcellinus's book, and I read much of it. Not all of it, but I read much of it. And he mentions this in his book, that the Jews tried to build the third temple at the behest of Julian the Apostate. As they were building it, balls of fire came from the sky, and the Jews ran away. Then they tried to build it again, and balls of fire came from the sky again, and they ran away. And they said, you know what? Let's not do this. When the Mormons were roaming around in the 19th century, there was one Mormon, I believe his name was Orson Pratt, and he took a trip all the way to Israel, and he told his followers, The third temple is going to be built here. Glenn Beck, the Mormon, is still talking about the third temple. If the pagans encourage the Jews to build the third temple, if Mormons are waiting for this third temple, and if you have these messianic lunatics talking about the third temple and how goats and sheep are going to be sacrificed again when Christ is the fulfilled sacrifice, that should worry you. So no, I don't believe in this third temple stuff. Thanks for saying this on Japan. Yes, of course. Yeah, Zakar, Burma, Philippines. Yeah, Indonesia. Absolutely. The Japanese were some of the most ruthless people to have ever lived. They were listen, I like Japanese cuisine. Japanese beer is good. Japanese music is wonderful. Japan is a beautiful country. Have nothing against the Japanese people. But when the Japanese were trying to take over Asia, they were absolutely sinister. Every country they went to, they raped and slaughtered and butchered people indiscriminately, killed millions of people. When American soldiers were being deployed to fight the Japanese, American soldiers were made to watch video footage and photographs of the atrocities that the Japanese were doing, to let the American soldiers know this is what you're dealing with. A great film was made on this. It's called City of Life and Death. Great movie, and it's a great historically accurate demonstration of how brutal the Japanese were. There's also a lot of documentaries you can look at. Just go on YouTube and type in "The Rape of Nanking." You sound like a Zionist. I don't know. This is how a Zionist sounds like. I mean, I thought Zionists were waiting for the third temple. If this is how a Zionist sounds like, I guess I'm a Zionist. I don't know, but I'm sitting here telling people don't trust the third temple cult stuff. But I guess that's what a Zionist says. Islam and Babylonian rabbinic Judaism the same. Look at the Sharia and the Talmud. Yeah, there is definitely similarities. I would argue that Islam was influenced by Kabbalah and by the Talmud. Islam is a Judaizing cult. You know, that's what a lot of people don't want to face, is that it's a Judaizing cult. It's originally Islam was not fixated on the Kaaba. There was a book that was written decades ago. It was called, I forgot the name of the book, but it was written by two authors, Cook and Crone were their last names. And they wrote a whole study demonstrating that the Kaaba was not the original fixation of Islam, and that the original holy site of the Muslim faith was Jerusalem. When Muhammad the Prophet got on the flying horse, al-Buraq, and he ascended in the Isra and Miraj, and where did he go? In the Islamic narrative, Muhammad went all the way to Jerusalem on a flying horse. Why? Because Jerusalem was the holy site. Protestants are Judaizers. Yes. All religious sects that broke away from the Catholic Church or are part of that Protestant legacy, they are all Judaizers. Mormonism is also a Judaizing cult. There was something that I read about this. Yes, Joseph Smith actually affirmed that his family and that his children were all of the seed of Jacob, and he was obsessed with being of the seed of Jacob. I've met people who are obsessed with this stuff. There was one guy that I knew. Oh my gosh, this guy was such a lunatic, but he was a messianic. This guy gives me a call and he starts telling me about the seed of Jacob. And he starts telling me about how certain people are born of demonic seed and certain people are born of good seed. And it was just wackiness, absolute wackiness. And then he told me that polygamy was great and just went downhill from there. St. Paul's a false prophet. There was one guy that I knew years and years and years ago. He was from England, and he was talking about how he wanted to get a second wife. Yeah, he wanted to get a second wife so that he could propagate the seed of Abraham. Crazy, absolutely crazy. But Joseph Smith was no different. And a lot of these cults are obsessed with being Jewish. In Islam, you have an obsession with Jerusalem. You have the belief that God is not Trinitarian, in agreement with the Jews of today. You have magic in Islam that's similar to Kabbalism. In Kabbalism, in the Kabbalah, you have geometric magic, geometric occultism. Kab-Allah, it sounds like the cube of Allah. Kaaba means cube. Kab-Allah, the cube. Kab, cube, the Kab of God, the cube of God. I could be wrong about that, but that's just an observation of mine. Under Islam, Jews are supposed to be second-class citizens, and a Jewish state on the grounds that would forever be Islamic is completely out of the question. Okay. I mean, I don't think anyone's arguing that Jews are going to turn to Islam anytime soon. They probably will. They probably will make some sort of an alliance. Yeah, pure insanity, absolutely. See, you're lucky. You live in Greece. And in Greece, you guys are mainly Orthodox, although there's a lot of atheists in Greece. But in America, we have tens of thousands of these weird sects. I have to be very careful when I use the word sect, because you got to pronounce it you have to really accentuate the T, because people would think it sounds weird if you don't. But there's tens of thousands of sects. And they all have these wacky ideas. They're obsessed with being Jewish, obsessed with being of the seed of Abraham. They're obsessed with all this weird ass stuff. Protestants are Judaizers in some sense, but it depends on the sect. Jehovah's Witnesses have their own weird ideas. Baptists, they all got their own doctrines. You do like bagels, okay? The Kabbalah. Eliezer Crowley was a Kabbalist. There were Nazis who were Kabbalists? They never tell you that. They'll never tell you that in History Channel. Well, if you go on History Channel, you start watching it, you'll start believing in aliens. But they were actually Nazis who were Kabbalists. Alfred Rosenberg was the head ideologue of the Nazi doctrine, Nazi ideology, and he references the Kabbalah in his work. You can read it. His book is called The Myth of the 20th Century. That's the name of his book. That book was very influential for the Nazis, and in that book, he references the Kabbalah numerous times. Ortho Christus, you have no idea. Try living in Alabama, and the rest of the Bible Belt Baptists, to me, are the most insane. Kabbalah is Babylonian. Yeah, I think it has some kind of connection to Babylon. Occultism was, I think, a lot more common in Jesus' time than we like to think. Josephus, when he describes the temple, he describes the temple with astrological terms. This part of the temple represented this part of the zodiac. And Josephus describes the temple as astrological. And I think that this reflects what type of belief people had, what type of paradigm people had in the time of Christ. And I think that when Jesus went to the temple, he saw this sort of thing. And he said, this temple that you guys revere so much, it's all coming down. It's all going down. And when Jesus is confronted by the demon-possessed man, it says that the demon-possessed man would go into the caves. Well, there was actually an ancient Jewish ritual where people would go into the tombs to communicate with the dead. This sprung from the belief, from the Jewish tradition, that when a man died, the soul actually lived in the corpse for a number of days, for 7 days or something like that. Therefore, you could still communicate with the man in his tomb. So people would go into the tombs to communicate with the dead. I suspect that's what this guy was doing. And he got possessed. He conjured something up, got possessed, and Jesus had to exorcise the demons. Where are the Jewish lost tribes? They're in Mexico, where everyone thinks they're Jewish. See, I'm a Jew. Yo soy un judeo. I'm a Jew. That's where they are, guys. Who really cares where the lost tribes are? It doesn't matter. Because guess what? There is neither Jew nor Greek. We are all one. So who really cares if you are a Jew? So I hope that covers that. Prots are Judaizers because they effectively are still clinging on to their twisted understanding of the Old Testament. Yes. Plus, Protestants are obsessed with being Jewish. They're obsessed with Jews. They're obsessed with Israel. I knew this one lady. Who was obsessed with Israel. And one time we were with this Israeli family. And there were these two Israeli teenagers there. And she has this Star of David hanging around her neck on her necklace. She takes out the necklace and she walks up to these teenagers and she says, "Look what I have. You know what this is? You know what this is, right?" And these guys are like, "Oy vey, like, leave us alone, please." Jesus and Mary and the apostles were all Jews. Jesus was also of mixed heritage. He was mixed with Arab. He was mixed with, probably had some Persian blood in him. Probably had some Canaanite blood in him even. The Jews were so mixed up. It's unreal. They were Jews. You're correct. And Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. And the people who follow Christ are following the Jewish Messiah. There are millions of Jews out there who reject Christ. Therefore, they reject their Messiah. Therefore, they're actually going against the true Jewish religion. So that's the way I look at it, guys. I'm not one of these people who's like, "Oh, by the way, Bill Maher, he's the chosen. I'm grafted with Bill Maher." Like, are you grafted with Karl Marx? I mean, really, get serious. Get serious, guys. This is childish. I think the whole obsession with the Jews is childish to me. You got a bunch of people who hate God. They call themselves Jews. And we're expected to be like, yeah, we're grafted in with them. We're grafted in. They're of the chosen. They're the chosen. They're the chosen. But I'm a Gentile and I'm grafted. Like, I don't accept that. I don't accept that because I follow the Jewish Messiah. They don't. They jumped off the ark. That's how I look at it. John Doppelganger. Are you from Germany, John? It's an interesting name. What are some books you are currently reading? I am currently reading Josephus's book on the Roman-Jewish War. You could read it for free online if you like, but I would just buy the compendium that you can get, or the compilation that you can buy. It's basically Whiston's translations of all of Josephus's works in one book. And you can get it at Barnes & Noble, or you can buy it on Amazon for probably $2, and that's on Prime. Stalin was a seminarian Orthodox, but never became a priest. Okay. Stalin was also from Georgia, where people are traditionally Christian, so it doesn't surprise me. I saw a headline earlier saying Bill Maher has COVID. Okay. Hope he gets better. I don't know. You'll probably hate this. Do you have a day job, or are you able to make money off of your site? I don't know how you're making money. I've tried raising money for trad Catholic projects, and it seems impossible. So my website, or our website, I should say, shoebot.com, has had a lot of success. And so there was a point in time when we were getting literally millions of views in a day. Like, one time we were getting 2 million views in one day. And it came to the point where, on average, we were getting literally hundreds of thousands of people reading our site every single day. So when you have that many people reading your website, yeah, we were able to get lots of donations. Do I have a day job? No, I don't. So hope that answers the question. The Mosaic covenant is no longer valid. Not doppelganger. I am a Orthodox Christian and have been accessed by Baptists as a Jesuit infiltrator. Okay, cool. People from India originally come from Papua New Guinea. I think it's the opposite. I think people in Papua New Guinea came from India. I think the Aboriginals of Australia and Oceania, I think that they are related, genetically related to the indigenous people of India. And by indigenous, I'm not talking about Aryans, and I'm not talking about people who have Persian blood. I'm talking about people who are the indigenous people of India, the original people who lived in India before the Aryans came in from Iran and from or from Central Asia or from Ukraine. And if you know, there was a lot of intermixture between these Aryan invaders and the indigenous people. And if you look at genetic studies on Indian people, you will find that there's a lot of genetic heritage from Ukraine and from Iran, from people who or were in Persia. Yes, the Dravidian. Yes, the Dravidian culture was the result of intermixture between Iranian farmers and indigenous women. So, and they made their own. They made their own culture, and that was the beginning of the Indian culture that we know today. So it's very, very fascinating. How old are you? I am 30 years old. Hey Theo, have you ever been accused by these crazy Baptists being called a Jesuit? Yes, I have. And I say, yeah, I'm a Jesuit. I'm also a spy for Iran. I'm here to make sure that America supports Iran so we can destroy Israel. Tamil, yeah, Tamils of South India are more of a Hamitic people, and they have, believe it or not, some genetic relation with the indigenous people of Australia and Oceania. Do you view mankind as slowly degenerating genetically since the fall? I wouldn't say degenerating, but I would say that the flesh of man is corrupt, and that means our genetics are corrupt. God in the book of Genesis is so regretful that he made man, and he said, I regret making humans. He actually says this, I regret making humans, which really gives us a deeper understanding of the character of God. We kind of think of God as this big judge and mechanic up in the sky who just arbitrarily does things. But God made man and gave man free will because God wanted man to love him willfully and not by design. God did not want us to love him by design. God did not design man to just love God automatically. We're not robots. God designed us in a way where we're happier when we're close to him. We're happier when we're doing the right thing, and where we are not that happy when we're slaves to our flesh. That's just how it is. But God made it this way. He allowed us to decide between good and evil because he wanted us to love him willfully. It's kind of like that movie Coming to America with Eddie Murphy, where Eddie Murphy wants a wife, but he doesn't want this woman that was brainwashed to love him. So he goes to Queens and he looks for a woman to willfully love him. It's kind of like that. And God wanted us to willfully love him, to choose to love him. And so because of that, we many times we turn to evil. We choose that. So humans were not designed to just be robots. And so because we chose sin, our flesh became corrupt. And God said, I regret making man. The flesh of man has become evil. And so the flesh of man is evil. Well, not completely, but the flesh can be good if it's governed by the spirit. But the flesh, when it's left to its own will, it it's evil. It's very corrupt. So I wouldn't say we are degenerating. I would say that we are fallen. We are living in a fallen state. St. Thomas founded the Indian Church, yes, the first Indian church. Free will, yep. How do you view the shorting of man's lifespan over the book of Genesis if it's not due to genetic damage? I don't know. I've heard different ideas about this. Some people talk about this giant awning that was hovering over the earth and that later disintegrated. I don't know. But I do know that today in our own times we have rape and murder and genocide. And if you look to the book of Genesis, it talks about how there was much violence throughout the earth and how there were giants in the land. And people, when they read that verse in Genesis 6, where it talks about giants in the land, they're like, oh, there were these giant alien creatures and they were genetically related to aliens and Hammurabi and Gilgamesh and a simple reading of the Hebrew will, I think, disprove this narrative. The Hebrew word used for giant is Jabor, and Jabar, literally means tyrant. It means tyrant, and when it says, for example, in the book of Genesis, it says Nimrod was a great hunter before the Lord. It describes Nimrod as a Jabbar, a great hunter. A Jabbar, he's a tyrant. When it says he was a great hunter, I've heard the interpretation that he was a hunter he was a hunter of man, is what he was. He hunted people. And so you read in the Old Testament, it's talking about massive amounts of violence happening in the world. Well, in the time of Noah, there was violence and there was murder and people killed. And it came to the point where God had to destroy the earth with a flood. So how could we be somehow different genetically when human beings have been doing the same evil stuff since the beginning? You know, we have murder today, and in the time of Noah, we had murder. I actually think that before the flood, there was a tribal war between the Cainites and the Sethites, and the Cainites were trying to do genocide on the Sethites. That's what I believe. This is a very old interpretation. It goes back to, I think, the 17th century, or maybe even earlier than that. And basically, it goes something like this: you had Cain and Abel. Cain murdered Abel, and then Cain had his posterity. He had his children, and they had their own children, and the line of Cain continued. Cain builds the first city. The Cainites were people who were metropolitan, and they were also into the arts, and they were into music. And the Bible describes, how instruments were invented by the family of Cain. And then Adam and Eve have Seth. Sethites were righteous. Noah and Enoch, they come from the line of Seth. So it says that there was great violence in the world, and the people that God preserved were these descendants of Seth. And I believe that the Cainites were trying to annihilate the Sethites, and God wanted to preserve just the people who were of the line of Seth. And he wiped out the Cainites. He preserved the Sethites through Noah and his family, and then mankind went on from there. So there was some like Rwandan genocide type of stuff that was happening before the flood. And I believe that when the Bible says that there was much violence in the earth, I think it's talking about just massive genocide, tribal, crazy bloodshed that was happening. Do you think Ethiopians are Semitic? Yes, they are Afro-Semitic. They have Arab blood. And if you look at some of the ancient languages of South Arabia that predate Islam, you will find that they share a relationship with Ethiopia. Can you believe in evolution and be Christian? No, I don't believe that. Because to believe in evolution, you would have to believe in survival of the fittest, which means that your God is a God of survival of the fittest, and you end up worshiping it's not the biblical God at that point. It's the Darwinian God. When will Turkey invade Israel? How am I supposed to know that question? I don't know that answer. I don't have like the secret documents from Ankara, like the date will be here. Erdogan said it. He's going to invade Israel. Like, dude, if I knew when Turkey was going to invade Israel, everyone else is going to know that. And you'd be hearing it on the news. Do you think okay, I already answered this. No evolution to yes, okay. There's a great example because the only time she expressed any free will was when he commanded her not to obey him. Turkey will never invade Israel. That's possible too. Ted, who do you believe is the one who was removed, allowing the Antichrist to appear? I've actually thought about this. I think that the one that is removed possibly could be the powers that be that are the establishment that are keeping the current world order maintained. So, for example, the European Union, its current state or pre-Brexit, the American global order, the Middle Eastern order that was destroyed, beginning with the Iraq War. These are the systems that were keeping the world in some sense together. You get rid of Saddam, you have chaos. You have the rise of Iran. You get rid of Bashar al-Assad, you have chaos. You have the rise of Turkey. You remove Great Britain from the EU. Now you have the Germans running the show without any sort of obstacle, without any sort of impediment from the British. That's why the Germans are now pursuing a pan-European military force, something that the British were always against. With America not controlling things, you have the rise of these regional powers. And so when it talks about the one that is holding him back, I think that it's talking about these particular systems. It could be that this is what it's talking about, these particular systems that are maintaining the current established world order. Good to see you on, by the way. Hope you and your family are well. Thank you, Ricky. Well, we did a lot of inbreeding, and we know, oh God, dude, you're still on this. It wasn't a problem at the start of Genesis, but it later became a problem where it's now has to be taboo. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I don't know. I gave you what I believe. Praise the Lord. Okay. Good night, guys. Good night, Ortho Christos. GBY. Cain and Abel are the first twins. Okay. The restrainer or retrainer. Is it correct that the fallen city Babylon is the Mecca, the center of Baal, which will be destroyed? My dad deals with all that stuff in his book. You can see it. Go on shootbot.com. It's the first post up there. You'll read away. It's all there. Catholic push evolution and teach evolution. So the Vatican is wrong. Yes, the Vatican is wrong. Absolutely. I hate that evolution stuff. Yes, the people in the Catholic Church have pushed this nonsense for decades. Yes, evolution is great. Absolutely, evolution is great. I think it's complete nonsense. I think it's completely satanic is what's been going on with the Vatican. The Vatican is so corrupt, man. It's so corrupt. I hate to sound like one of these conformist hippies, but that's what it is. It's so corrupt. Ridiculously corrupt. I went to the Vatican. Beautiful city, by the way. It's awe-inspiring. Honestly, it's awe-inspiring. You go. I was like Juba from Gladiator when I was in the Vatican. I was like, I did not know men could build such things. So the most beautiful architecture I've ever seen in my life. Gorgeous, gorgeous. See this giant statue of Saint Peter. So I go into the Vatican and I walk into St. Peter's Basilica. There's no air conditioning in St. Peter's Basilica. So you walk into this ancient church, it literally feels like a sauna. I'm not even exaggerating. It's a sauna. You can smell every ethnicity's body odor. The body odor of every ethnic group in the world. You smell it in St. Peter's Basilica. So I know how French people smell like, English people smell like, Americans smell like, Italians smell like. I know all the Filipinos, Asians, Africans, Middle Eastern people. I was smelling everybody. And you're walking to St. Peter's Basilica, and it's like oui, gua. I'm like, oh, Frenchie, yep, smell. I can smell them. Smell them, French people. Smell them. So yes, it's terrible. And I went to the Vatican, and I kept thinking, you go to the Vatican, and you see like these ancient statues everywhere, ancient relics. I mean, these are very ancient relics. Paintings from the 14th century Renaissance period. It's all there. And you pull it, God forbid you pull out a camera, because as soon as you pull out a camera, you got some Italian guys. What are you doing? No, sir, the camera will destroy the painting. You can't do that. So, anyway, I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm thinking, who's the janitor here? Could you imagine being a janitor at the Vatican? Could you imagine being a janitor in the Vatican? That's so creepy. It'd be like that Ben Stiller movie where he has to go to the museum. But could you imagine being a janitor at the Vatican? Man, that'd be crazy. It'd be like The Omen, like the movie The Omen. So I'm sitting there in front of St. Peter's Basilica, and I say, and I'm with these nuns, and I said, so is this where all the cardinals get together and hang out? And one of the nuns says, no, 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 this is not where the cardinals hang out. The cardinal hangs out over there. And I look, and there's this little building across from St. Peter's Basilica, and she says that's where all the very important meetings take place. They take place in there, and I'm like, oh man, that's where all the diabolical conspiracies take place. But no, in all seriousness, the Vatican is a very evil place. It's evil. It's completely evil. There's so many pedophiles in the Vatican. There's so many like predators, so much of that stuff that goes on, and no one does anything about it. No one does anything. Nothing. The church hasn't really promoted evolution. They have just muddled the waters to appear that I understand that, but that's dangerous because you have no firm belief on evolution. There's no firm condemnation of it. So Catholics can believe in evolution. And you have priests who talk about evolution, by the way. I'm a former professional artist for 11 years. Humidity and temperature variations do affect oil paintings. Conservators get paid good money to preserve art in museums. Oh, I'm sure you're right. I wonder what secret things the Vatican has in its archives and tunnels. Do you think the second coming of Jesus will be in Jerusalem? Do I think it'll be in Jerusalem? I think so, because that's where Jesus was murdered. So if I had to guess, yes. Heiligbloed. John Doppelganger. It is no secret that Turkish dictator Erdogan dreams of a new Ottoman caliphate. So, Mr. Heiligbloed, are you writing from the Netherlands, or do you live in a different country? I'm just curious. The Netherlands looks like a cool place. Emil Bonzi. It's Satan's aim to destroy the churches internally, but Christ will save the believers. Yeah. I don't know. What's there to talk about? I mean, the Vatican, the problem with the Vatican, here's one of the biggest issues I have with the Catholic Church. In the Catholic Church, you have these priests who are saying all the right things. They say all the right things. And then you have priests who say all the bad things. And there's no super attending authority that says, yeah, these priests are bad, these priests are good. So it's, in a way, the Catholic Church is in a state of anarchy. There's no real central authority in the Vatican anymore. You have Pope Francis, but I mean, what's he doing? Let's be honest here. Is he saying, we got to clean the house, got to get the predators out, clean the house out? He's not doing that. Some of us Orthodox have had to deal with those that accept evolution. We even defrocked. Yeah, in the Orthodox world, there is a very famous American or English priest, and he believes in evolution. I forgot his name. I think, what's his name? Theodore? I'll look him up real quick. Hold on. No, wait, he's British. He's a British guy. British Orthodox priest. What's his name? He's a very popular guy. He's from England. I forgot his name, but he was very famous. But he talked about evolution. But he also talked about the Jesus prayer, very popular. And I actually used to listen to him a great deal because he would talk about the very spiritual things that I was very interested in, still am interested in, like the Jesus prayer. I find the Jesus prayer to be beautiful, and I find hesychasm to be something that's very just transformational. Callistos Ware, that was his name, Callistos Ware. The idea of saying the Jesus prayer, it just bypasses so much confusion that people have when it comes to prayer. So, for example, in Catholicism or in Orthodox Christianity, there's this concept of becoming one with God. Orthodox Christians will call this theosis. In the Catholic world, I, I I think there's a term for this. I don't remember what it is, but basically, it's about having this union with God, and it comes through prayer, really. And when you pray, some people will think, well, how do I reach this union with God? And with the Jesus prayer, you have a very short prayer that anyone can remember, and it can be always in your head. You can say it anytime. And when you say it, you focus on the words that you're saying. Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Focusing on the words, focusing on the meaning, and also saying these words with deliberateness and with awareness of what you're saying. It's quite transformational. The same thing can be said about the Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. And saying this prayer with intention and with awareness of what you're saying is also transformational. They say but they don't do. He is a joke. Do you feel modernity has destroyed the West? Do I feel that modernity has destroyed the West? What do you mean by modernity? Mean like the Enlightenment? I think that the Enlightenment was just one of the phases of the death of Christendom. The death of Christendom was a process, a very long process. Begins in the late medieval period when you have people selling ecclesiastical positions. You have heretics who start questioning the Eucharist. You have dualism being very heavy in Christendom, especially in France. Then you have the rise of people like Wesley, not Wesley, the guy in England. I don't remember his name, but you have the rise of these pre-Reformation Protestant sects. Jan Hus comes into the picture. John Wycliffe in England, the Wycliffites who really were ultimately influenced by a German heretic by the name of Gerhard. Gerhard taught a form of theological dualism. It just continues on from there. And you have the breakdown, the fragmentation of Christendom way before Protestantism, actually. This fragmentation begins. You have the kings killing each other, different kingdoms going to war with each other. You have different kingdoms in Italy going to war with each other. It was pretty brutal. And the Protestant world manifests itself in all of this chaos. And it just escalates from there. And eventually you have the full fragmentation of Christendom, the 30 Years' of War, and it just, Christendom by then has just been torn apart. Theosis, that's correct. Oh, where was defrocked? I didn't know that. I have to look that up. All right, Keith. Have a good day or night. I believe was a warning against evolution by point to the dogma of the IC Mary point indirectly to the dogma of original sin, which deny evolution. Okay. I think Jews are waiting for their Messiah, which is not going to happen as Christ had already came, and the Antichrist will be Gentile behaving as Jew. So when it comes to the Jewish Messiah, Christians are waiting for the Messiah to return. Jews are still waiting for the Messiah to make his first visit. So when Jesus returns, I believe that there will be Jews who will worship him and accept him as the Messiah. But I also believe there's going to be Jews who will say he's not the Messiah, and they're going to end up following the Antichrist. Just like when Jesus came the first time, there were Jews who accepted him as the Messiah, but then there were a lot of Jews who accepted all these false messiahs to be their guy, and they ended up going down the road to perdition. Isn't that the whole case? The case of whole familia, priest and cardinal come from us family? I believe that the corruption of the church truly begins with society. Because we, at the end of the day, produce the priests, and we produce the bishops, we produce the cardinals. People have this idea like, well, if we just had some good priests and things would be better. And it's like, no, if we had good society, things would be better. So it all comes down to the family structure. Bad family structure, you have bad priests, and the cycle continues on. Bad priests, bad influence, it continues on. But if we had a good family structure, then we would have good priests, because priests are people and they are products of the society, just as we all are products of our society. We're all products of our surrounding to a certain extent. So it really comes down to the masses. Do you think Republican Party to win in the 2024 election? I don't want to make any emphatic predictions when it comes to the election. I made that mistake with Trump versus Biden, and I ended up looking with egg in my face. I will say I believe that the next president will be Republican. I could be wrong, but I believe it's very likely that the next president will be Republican. And I say that because there's still tons of people who believe that Trump should be the president. And people are going to come in the droves to vote Republican to show that the country wants a Republican. And there's a lot of people who hate Biden. Gas is very expensive. Lumber is very expensive. Things have gone more expensive. So people will think, well, maybe we should vote for a Republican. I think that people are going to turn to a Republican for the most part. What is your opinion on the SSPX? I think that the SSPX is a schismatic group of Nazi rebels. And I don't say that humorously. They're full of Nazis. They are filled with Holocaust deniers. They're filled with weird, like, homeschooling cults. The SSPX is a cult. I was in the SSPX for a while. I went to an SSPX parish for a number of years, and I can tell you right now, it's filled with Nazis. It's the reason why I left. It's full of Nazis, full of just these weird families where the guy has like 8 kids, and there's nothing wrong with having 8 kids, but you can tell there's some weird cultic stuff going on. It's bottom up and not top down. Absolutely. I see things from a bottom up point of view. Most people see things from a top to bottom point of view. They think that the leadership is all that matters, and that's a load of bull crap. The reality is that what truly matters is the foundation. The foundation of a house is everything. The foundation of a society is everything. If you have too many dysfunctional families, you're going to have dysfunction in every place of society. You're going to have dysfunction in the church, and it's going to be there, and it's going to be very strong. You even said you would stop making YouTube videos if Trump was not elected. Did I say that? Yeah, I think I did say that, but I said that in jest. And I said that I wouldn't be making any more emphatic predictions. Do you think without COVID, Trump would have won? I believe so. Yes. Hey, at least Theo, you didn't say God said Trump. No, I would never put myself in the position of God. Never knew they denied the Holocaust. I don't think Mel Gibson is part of the SSPX. I think Mel Gibson is a part of the I don't remember the name of it. It's that ultra conservative sect in the Vatican. Mel Gibson, Catholic. Let's see here. I forgot the name of the group. Something Dei. Opus Dei, I think it was called. And Opus Dei is very questionable. They're very questionable. Yeah, I read that Mel Gibson was brought up in a sedevacantist cult, but SSPXers don't consider themselves sedevacantist, even though they are members of the SSPX who are sedevacantist. The leadership does not consider itself sedevacantist. But the problem is that the leadership of the SSPX does have a Nazi problem, and there are lots of Nazis who like to go to SSPX churches, and you'll figure that out when you join an SSPX church. Believe me, I did, and I know. It's just so many weirdos out there. But yeah, how long have I been streaming? Streaming for an hour. If any of you guys have any questions, just shoot them at me, man. Because I'm going to be getting out of here soon. It's been an hour. What do you think about Zedevacantists? I think that they are schismatics, and I think a lot of Zedevacantists are Nazis. So I don't really trust the movement. Have a good night, the biblicist. But anyway, yeah, I think we're good. They deny indefectibility when they reject Vatican II. What's an SSPX church? SSPX stands for the Society of St. Pius X, and an SSPX church is part of that order. They basically say that SSPXers believe that Vatican II is the problem and that it should be removed, and they want to be under Rome. That's the thing. SSPXers want to be under Rome. Like a lot of SSPXers do, but then you have these rebellious types in the leadership who don't want to be under Rome, and they say like, we're not going to be under Rome until you get rid of Vatican II, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. What is your opinion on the intercession of saints? I definitely believe in the intercession of saints. Definitely believe in it. It's in the Bible. In the book of Maccabees, second book of Maccabees, the prophet Jeremiah is seen praying for the children of Israel in heaven. In the book of Revelation, it speaks of the prayers of the saints in heaven. It's in the Bible. Yeah. What are you reading now? Do you usually read a lot? I don't read all day. I got a bunch of other stuff that I do. I garden. I have chickens to take care of. Website to take care of. I cook a lot. So I don't really, I'm not reading all day, but I try to find some time to read. But lately I have been kind of slothful when it comes to reading. I've been enjoying watching horror movies. It's kind of a pastime of mine to watch horror films and thrillers and suspense movies. I really enjoy horror films, actually. But when I do read, I usually read at night, or sometimes I read during the day, usually for an hour or 2 hours or so. But I think that if you can reserve 1 hour of your day to read, I think you're on your way to glory. Have you considered joining an Eastern Rite Catholic church? At one point in time, actually, believe it or not, when I when I got confirmed in the Catholic Church, I was actually confirmed through a Maronite church, which is an Eastern Rite. And I was in the Maronite church for about 9 months or so. Then I left because the problem with the Maronite church is that to a great extent, it's like an ethnic club. And believe it or not, a bishop approached me. His name is Abdullah Elias. You can look him up. Very famous guy in the Catholic world. And Abdullah Elias came, and then there was some priests that came over, and they were all Lebanese. And Lebanese people and Palestinians don't like each other. There's more hatred between Lebanese people and Palestinian people than there is between Jews and Palestinians. Palestinians and Jews get along more than Palestinians and Lebanese. Okay, the hatred is that real. And one of the priests asked me, he says, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from California." He said, "No, where are you really from?" Oh boy. And I said, "My father's from Israel." And he said, "Oh, what part?" And I said, "Oh, he's from the West Bank." And they knew I was Palestinian, and I felt I just got a lot of weird racist vibes from them. It was, yeah, they weren't very polite with me. We talked about Islam, and they were telling me that Islam's like a great religion. And I said, well, but Islam is an Arian heresy, and the Catholic Church condemns Arianism. And the priest said, "Who's Arius?" And I said, "You don't know who Arius is?" I said, "You're a priest. You're supposed to know these things. 4th century heretic." And he said, "I fell asleep in church history." That's what he told me, exact words. And then before I left, I went to the bishop and I said, "Hey, it was nice talking to you. I'll see you later." And he's like, "Huh, huh." He just gives me this look. And I'm thinking, I don't feel very welcomed here. Feels like I'm in an ethnic club. What do you think about Mormonism and their soft corner of polygamy? My God, how much time do you have, guys? when I was 14 years old, I started writing a book. It was called In Satan's Footsteps. It was published when I started writing it when I was 15. It got published when I was 17 years old, I believe, 16 or 17 years old. It was my first book. I would say that out of all the books that I have written, I've written 3 books. I would say that the best book that I have ever written was the first book I read. Many times authors are ashamed of their first works because they write the book and they're excited about it, but then they learn new things and they mature and they look back and they say, "Oh, I was so different in those days. I'm much more learned now, or I know so much more than I did then," et cetera, et cetera. I actually look back and I say the first book that I wrote, In Satan's Footsteps, was my best book. I truly believe that because it was very simple. It was very straight to the point. It didn't get involved in complicated, complex theological questions like I did with my last book. And it wasn't very idealistic. The last book that I wrote, Christianity is at War, I wrote that book when I was at the peak of my idealism. So I was very idealistic about Christendom and the revival of Christendom and the Crusades and all that stuff. But then looking back to when I wrote my first book, In Satan's Footsteps, I was interested in, getting straight to the point of things. And in that book, In Satan's Footsteps, I focused a lot on Mormonism and its parallel with Islam. And much of that book is about Mormonism. Now, with that said, I will give you my opinion on Mormonism. The simple response to your question is Mormonism is basically white trash Islam. That's what it is. Mormonism is Islam if Muhammad grew up in New York. And Joseph Smith came from New York. And he came up with a cult. And he said that an angel came to me. Now, Mormonism, I will say, is wackier than Islam. Mormonism it's It's like Islam, and Joseph Smith did say that he was the second Muhammad. But in many ways, it's like Scientology. It's like 19th century Scientology. Scientology teaches that there are these spirits called thetans, and they possess all of us, and they were thrown out of heaven, and they possess everyone. Mormonism teaches that there was a war in heaven, as Christians also teach, but the angels were thrown out, and the good angels possessed the good people, and the bad angels, the fallen angels, they possessed the evil people, or something to the likes of that. And Joseph Smith taught that the Trinity is false because they are actually three gods. That God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit are three different deities. There is no hypostatic union in Mormonism. There is this idea that there are three deities. Whereas in Christianity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, they are one God. One God, but God the Father is not the same as God the Son. God the Holy Spirit is not the same as God the Father, and et cetera, et cetera. And that in God there are three persons, one God, three in one. Mormonism teaches that there are three gods. Now, the reason why Mormonism teaches this is because Mormonism looks at Christianity with almost a materialistic way of thinking. And Islam also does this. Jehovah's Witnesses also do this. So what I mean by a materialist way of thinking is that how could you believe that the Son and the Father are one? And how could you believe that God is three? It doesn't make any sense. So Mormonism takes the route of they are three gods, because it's impossible for three persons to be divine but yet be one. Islam has also a materialistic lens looking at Christianity, but Islam says, how could the Father and the Son be one? And how can God have a son unless he has a wife? God doesn't have a wife, therefore Christ is not the Son of God, and Christ cannot be divine because Christ was a man, and a man cannot be God, so therefore Christ is a prophet. So Islam looks at Christianity through a materialist lens. It takes the things in Christianity that in a way go against our superficial logic and makes that materialist interpretation the true theology. And that's what Islam does. Mormonism does this, but Mormonism goes to the route of polytheism. Islam goes down the route to more of a deistic monotheism. So yeah, that's my position on Mormonism. I have more things to say, but I will be here for hours talking about this. Let's look at your questions here. Have you read? Hold on. You guys have a lot of questions. You guys have more questions for me now than I did in the past. Maybe it's because I have more subscribers, or maybe because it's been a while since I've done a live stream. I think maybe I should do a live stream once a month. That way you guys will appreciate these more. Because when I was doing these weekly, you guys were like, this guy is, talking too much. Have you read the Jewish Revolutionary Spirit by Dr. Jones? I have a copy of that book, and I will be reading it in the future. And I will be telling you guys all about it as I read it. Do you think the Book of Adam and Eve is authentic? I've never heard of it, but just by looking at the title, I'm going to say no. What was the most inspirational Hilaire Belloc quote that changed you? I can't remember. I'm thinking. That changed me. It's a good question. I don't remember any quotes, but I remember concepts that he taught, and I remember things that he taught. And I will say that Hilaire Belloc really changed my really, I would say he heavily influenced me on heresy and how Islam and all these different heretical groups are actually more alike and how they actually help each other. Yeah, I'll just go with that. I will say that his book on heresies is very good. I'd recommend anyone to read it. Have you considered? Okay, I already answered that. What do you think about Mormonism? I already answered that. G.K. Chesterton. I would say with G.K. Chesterton, I was greatly influenced by his quote, which was, if you remove the 10 commandments, then you'll end up with 10,000 commandments. In other words, if you get rid of the simple laws of God, you'll end up with these extremely complex rules that human beings come up with. Human beings are actually more legalistic than Christianity, because human beings will look for loopholes to justify anything. That's why we have so many laws, and that's why we have regulations, and that's why we have bureaucracy and so much paperwork, because people look for loopholes through things. That's why it's such a pain to read through legal documents. That's why we hire lawyers to interpret legal documents for us, because it's so painful and tedious to read through them. Why are they so tedious? Because their sentences are super long, and they have to include exceptions, and they have to include certain certain permission for certain things. And the reason why legal statements are so intricate is because they understand that people look for loopholes. So you have to include all the exceptions. You have to include all of the different situations where the statement may not necessarily apply, or where it has to apply, and you have to give different scenarios, because the more and more we look for loopholes, the more complex the laws have to be, the more complex the literature has to be. And so because we as humans look for loopholes, we come up with all these different laws so we can prevent all of the weird scenarios that humans can come up with. But if you look at the 10 commandments, it's very simple. Don't murder, don't worship other gods, don't covet. I mean, very simple. Does intercession saints remove point Jesus Christ work on the cross? No, it doesn't, because we are partakers in the intercession of Christ. St. Paul was a mediator in the sense that he brought the gospel to people. When you pray for someone, you are a mediator. When you bring the gospel to someone, you are a mediator. When James says, confess your sins to one another, well, I only confess my sins to God. Well, that's not what St. James says. And Jesus himself says it, whosoever sins you shall forgive, they will be forgiven. He gave this authority to the disciples to be mediators. So it says Christ is our mediator, but it doesn't say Christ is the only mediator, and it doesn't say that we can't be participators in the mediation of Christ. That's one thing that you have to consider. What is your favorite B movie? What's a B movie? Is that like a cheap movie? What's a B movie? I recently saw a cheaply done Canadian movie. It's called Black Side Mountain. I thought it was okay. It's a decent horror film. Very, very reminiscent to The Thing. What horror movies? The Exorcist is a great film. I really like. I really, really enjoy atmospheric horror. I think atmospheric horror is awesome. I love the way that they do these films. I love the like the sound, like the ambient noise that they use. I like the music, the sound score. The last atmosphere, and by atmospheric horror, so what is atmospheric horror? Atmospheric horror is films that are considered atmospheric horror. They don't show things immediately, and they call it the slow burn films. They allow the plot to slowly flesh itself out, to slowly reveal itself to the audience. And in a way, when you're watching these films, you're just as clueless as the characters in the movie. And so you will have these scenes where a character will be sitting at his dinner table by himself eating, and there's no noise, and you hear, well, there's no ambient music, and but you'll hear like bloop, the ticking of a clock, and that'll go on for 30 seconds or so. And then there's some ambient music that comes. And you don't really know, and nothing's happening though, but something is happening. You just can't see it. And then all of a sudden, boom! Some image pops up. And atmospheric horror is very good at utilizing very brief but disturbing images, very brief but intense imagery to frighten you. And a lot of atmospheric horror films, they deal with the occult. They deal with the dangers of occultism and how sinister it is. The last good atmospheric horror that I watched was The Black Coat's Daughter. It was a great film. If you don't like violence, don't watch this movie. But if you don't mind watching a little violence, and you do appreciate the art of atmospheric horror, I would definitely recommend The Black Coat's Daughter. The music, the sound score, the acting was good. The way that the story plot slowly reveals itself. It was just a very well done film. I really enjoyed it. What's your dad been up to? He just put up a book that's over 600 pages, and you can read it up on shootbot.com. Do they throw rocks at each other? Can we say Islam is the heresy came from Arianism? Yes, you can. Absolutely. Islam is basically an Arab extension of the Arian heresy. If you want a good laugh, look up on YouTube the Stall Street Boys. It's a bunch of parodies of Backstreet Boys. Whatever happened to Backstreet Boys? I don't know. Those bands they were very, very popular. They were very, very popular at one point in the 90s, and they kind of died. You know, I never liked that music, even as a young, very young teenager. I just didn't like that music. It just never really appealed to me. It's too poppy for me. If you want a good laugh, okay. If I were to guess intent, they were literally trying to get you to leave the church and join Islam, because I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of those Maronites are more happy with Muslims than other Catholics. In fact, the Maronite leadership in Lebanon tells its followers to participate in the Shiite ritual of Ashura, where the Shiites cut themselves, literally like self-mutilate, satanic ritual of self-mutilation. And the Maronite priests say, "Oh, go join your Shiite friends and participate in Ashura." It's just like crazy. The Maronite leadership is very corrupt. There's people who become Maronite Catholics who aren't Lebanese. Yeah, I know. I'm aware of that. I never denied that. But once you tell them you're Palestinian, they don't like that. Do you feel Ethiopian Christianity will go the way of the Copts? No, I don't. Ethiopians are very spiritual people. I'm actually very impressed with the Ethiopian Christians. They're probably the most spiritual people I've ever seen. If you actually go look into Ethiopian Christianity, Ethiopian Christians will do this ritual where they go to this ancient church and they'll stay there all day and all night praying and singing these beautiful chants. It's very intensely spiritual. That's why I think that when the ISIS terrorists told those Ethiopians to reject Christ, none of them rejected Christ, because they're so spiritually in tuned and so spiritually focused. Mormonism is a cult, nothing to be connected with Christianity. Yeah, I know. But nonetheless, it takes ideas from Christianity and it corrupts them. Hello, Christ is King. They are the extra thinkers of evil thoughts, like atheists. Mormonism tried to go on extra level of thinking and are nowhere. Mary had a son. Okay. Something came up. Hold on. The Bible says there's only one mediator, but why? But we can participate in the mediation of Christ. Yes. The book of Adam and Eve were in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, but it's not in the canon. Do you pray the rosary? I pray prayers from the rosary. I don't do the rosary every day, although I should, though, but sometimes I get lazy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I say it every single day. Um, the Quran also says that Jesus is the Messiah, which means anointed, one which is a metaphor. Yes, they hold Christ to be the Messiah. Islam is a Christian heretical cult, like Mormonism or the Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's why you'll find these parallels. Are the people we know as Jews today the synagogue of Satan from the book of Revelation? Yeah, Judaism today is the synagogue of Satan. Yes, I believe that. Even some primitive micro life forms can produce asexuality without a partner. Okay. Islam mostly see have many kids as a way of creating armies and viewed as commodities. Yeah, Islam is like Mormonism or the Quiver movement. They believe in having tons and tons of children, big families. They also don't believe in adoption. Yep, that's correct. Yeah. Islam rejects adoption. The second edition of JRS is out now. I don't know what that is. From the Russian spy to my friendly Iranian spy, have to go take care of my cats. Oh, okay. Say hello to the cats for me. The Book of Adam. Okay, I already read this. I'll be waiting for your stream on Sam's channel with Mr. Waleed. I did a stream with Sam Shamoon on Monday. It's up on his channel. My favorite Belloc quote: "Wherever the Catholic sun doth shine, I have always found laughter and good red wine." Yeah, very true. Some have said that the Ottomans were quite benign to the people they conquered, allowed them to keep their religion. Others say they were vicious. I think it was a little bit of both, and it probably depended on who was the leadership. When the Turks took over Istanbul, Constantinople, they appointed a bishop to lead the church, and the bishop was a puppet for the Ottomans. But nonetheless, Christians were allowed to go to church. Christians are still allowed to go to church in Turkey, although that's becoming very shaded out. It's beginning to become overshadowed by an anti-Christian conspiracy in Turkey. Oh no, it's 600 pages. I'm only on page 38. Yeah, it's pretty big, man. Do you like M. Night Shyamalan's movies? Yeah, I definitely enjoyed The Visit. I think The Visit was probably his best film. I enjoyed Signs was excellent with Mel Gibson. I loved Signs. The Village was okay. But I really enjoyed The Visit. I would say The Visit was the film that I enjoyed. It was such a good film. I love that film. Such a good movie. Two kids go visit grandma and grandpa. Turns out grandma and grandpa are part of a UFO cult, and they literally want to cook the kids in an oven. And the kids now have to fight these two elderly people. They find out that they're not even their grandparents. They find out that this elderly couple murdered grandma and grandpa and took over the house. And they're using the kids to be human sacrifices for their alien cult. It's crazy. And you know what's so crazy is that sort of thing actually exists. Look up Marshall Applewhite. Look up the Marshall Applewhite cult. They were a UFO cult. They worshipped aliens, and they ended up committing mass suicide. Scientology is another UFO cult. You know, Germany outlawed Scientology. I think the Germans were right. I completely agree with the Germans on this. I think they also outlawed it in Israel, if I'm not mistaken. I agree. I think Scientology should be outlawed. I really believe it should be outlawed. It's a controlling, absolutely controlling, despotic UFO cult. It's very dangerous. People who get caught up in Scientology, they literally have to run away because the Scientologists will harass them. It's just a demonic, tyrannical cult. Should not be tolerated in any free society. I don't agree with that, with Scientology being given free reign. My friend's god brother actually said that it's groups of Lebanese who don't like each other. Yeah, that's also true. There was a vicious civil war there. You had the Druze versus the Christians, and then you had the Palestinians were actually fighting each other at one point in time. And then, of course, you had the Shiites. The Shiites actually had a better relationship with the Christians than the Sunni did, but there was a vicious war. People were killing each other. Yeah, it was very ugly. There were no good sides in that conflict. My understanding is that the Jewish Messiah and the Antichrist are one and the same. Isn't that what the church teaches? Yeah, Robert Bellarmine taught that the Antichrist will be Jewish, so that makes sense. Let's see here. Let's see here. My understanding. Okay. What is your opinion on the MGTOW movement? I don't like it. I don't like any movement that tries to pit the genders against each other. And I know people in MGTOW will say, well, we're not trying to do that. It's already happening because there's a war on men. I just don't like it. It seems very toxic to me. I think that this idea, like, okay, how do I say this? So the MGTOW movement, like any other movement in existence, says things that are true, right? Like there's laws that give the disadvantage to men, and men can be unfairly treated in society, and all of that is true, right? There's definitely truth to all of that stuff. Men are not really at an advantage in the sexual marketplace, or women usually dictate a lot of that stuff. A lot of that is true, but it becomes very toxic when people dedicate their lives to that sort of thing. Like there's people on YouTube who dedicate their whole lives talking about how bad women are. Why would you want to waste your time doing that? You know what I mean? It's so silly to me. It's just immature. Like, imagine every day me coming on this YouTube channel and I'll be like, the divorce rate is very, very high because women have ruined the world. Women have ruined society. It's like, why would I want to waste my time doing that? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like a total waste of time. And if women are so bad, why are you wasting your time with them? And you have these men who are like, well, my wife left me and she screwed me over. And you know what, man? I feel for you there. It sucks. A lot of that stuff is terrible. But guess what? Don't marry bad women. Simple as that. And, I think there's a lot of women out there who are very toxic. I'm not going to deny that. I'd be naive to say otherwise. But I just wouldn't waste my time focusing on it. And I wouldn't waste my time sitting here talking about how bad women are and how women are biologically predisposed to certain behaviors and all that stuff. And it's just craziness to me. It's like the third wave feminists who sit there and they're like, well, men are this and men are that and men are this. Like, why would you want to waste your time? It's basically male feminism. That's all it is. MGTOW is male feminism. The Jewish Messiah is Jesus, dude. Yeah, we know that. I already said that. I'm actually Ethiopian. Cool, man. Is the rosary a vain repetition? It can be a vain repetition. Depends on what you make it. If you have people who are like, Hail Mary, full of grace, and they just want to get on with it and get over with it, I would say that's a vain repetition. But again, if you're repeating the prayer with intent and you're knowing what you're saying and you have an awareness of what you're saying, but you want to have a focus on what you're saying, that is not a vain. That's instilling something in your soul. There's a verse in the New Testament where Jesus says, don't repeat yourself like the pagans do. If you actually look at the word repetition, it's something like don't be babbling, don't be saying nonsensical stuff. In the evangelical world, you see a lot of people saying nonsensical things in prayers, but I would not say that the rosary is anything nonsensical. Muslims don't know what Messiah means. Okay. Satan can take the word of God and twist it. Yeah. Oh, JRS. Okay, yeah, I have a copy of the book, and I'll read it eventually. I'll tell you guys all what I think about it. I'm Eritrean. Very cool. Romeo. Oh man, something happened here. The best Christian apologist polemic in your opinion? I would say Robert Bellarmine. I would say is out of all the apologists, I would say he's the one that really influenced me. How you will justify rosary and prayers to the people which are not among us, as is not in the Bible? Example, I'm open. So Kaloyan Ivanov, for one thing, in the second book of Maccabees, it talks about the prophet Jeremiah in heaven praying for the children of Israel. So people definitely, yeah, people in heaven can pray for us. People in heaven are not dead; they can pray for us. Book of Revelation talks about saints in heaven praying for us. Um, even fasting for the dead is in the Old Testament. King David fasts for Jonathan after Jonathan died. King David fasts for King Saul. So fasting for the dead, prayers from the dead, prayers from the saints, it's all in the Bible. Definitely, if you look at like really ancient prayers, even from going as far back as the 3rd century, maybe even earlier than that, you will find prayers asking for the intercession of saints. An Orthodox monk said Middle Eastern Christians are pretty secular. True. Yeah, I would say yeah. There's a lot of truth to that. A lot of them don't even care about Christianity. It's just an ethnic club. Um, they are culturally Christian. It becomes part of their ethnic identity. You see this a lot with the Maronites, and you see this a lot with the Assyrians, and even a lot of Palestinian Christians. You see this sort of thing where Christian becomes just like a part of their national ethnic identity. And if they see another race that they don't like, they make it very known that they don't like that person, even if that person is a Christian. And again, I'm not generalizing people, but that does exist. Coptic Christians, I would say, are very intense. They're very into their faith. Ethiopian Christians are very into their faith. But I would say that a lot of Assyrian Christians, they say we're Christian, but it's all a part of some nationalistic idea. Thoughts on Tariq Nasheed? Complete and utter lunatic. Weird ideas of black supremacy, weird ideas of the black race. It's just a cult of race. Tariq Nasheed also has these hysterical fantasies of white supremacy, and he finds white supremacy under every single rock, and he can't really fully prove it. So yeah, the guy's pretty laughable in his debating skills as well. After Christ, many false messiah came in Israel, and Jews even, yeah, that's true. A lot of Jews felt for many false messiahs. Have you read George Orwell's 1984? No. Even though so many people obsess over it, I never really saw what the big deal about that book was. Maybe somebody can inform me on that. Antichrist will be as Irod, probably ex-Arab convert to Judaism. I beats me, man. I don't know how we could prove that. Heaven's Gate. Yes, that's correct. Marshall Applewhite. Do you feel Iranians are open to Christianity? Yes, Iranians are very open to Christianity because they don't like the Arabs, and a lot of them don't even like Islam because Islam was forced on the Iranians. So a lot of Iranians are willing to leave Islam. If you meditate on the mysteries when praying the rosary, it won't be vain repetition. Yeah, exactly. Do you feel okay? Blah blah blah. Where in the Revelation? Okay, at one point, Jews became Israel, and Israel became Jews. What we missing here? At what point Jews became Israel, and Israel became Jews? I would say it happened when the Jews invaded Canaan and took it over, and it became Israel. Yeah, Israel has been the historical land for the Jews for thousands of years. Christianity is extremely banned in Saudi Arabia, but Iran allows native churches only that there be no conversion. John 8:51 tells us that saints aren't dead, but indeed alive. Absolutely. That's a very good point. Very good point. Have you ever looked into the phenomena of mass rape during the Armenian genocide? Yeah, actually, I have. And I never said I'm going to research rape, but I have researched the Armenian genocide. And yes, there was tremendous amounts of rape and tremendous amounts of kidnapping of children and Turkifying them. There was a lot of that went on. A lot of pregnant women were murdered. Their embryos were ripped out from their wombs. It was pretty horrific stuff. Maccabees is later canonization, and my question is why you don't recognize the other books as Ethiopian one that is suitable for you. I don't know. I haven't looked too much into the Ethiopian Bible, but I know that the first and second Maccabees are definitely part of canon. There's difference, by the way, the sacred and the profane. The ethnic club stereotype is mostly with the Greek Orthodox. The rest are fine. Apparently, you haven't hung out with Maronites. Do you think? I remember I saw this video. It had Croatian Catholics, and they were watching the soccer game in the church, because Croatia was playing. So yeah, it's kind of an ethnic club. Do you think God has missed to put everything that what we need in the first canonization? No, because God used the church to compile the scriptures, and in the original Bible, we have First and Second Maccabees. We have the Book of Judith. We have the Book of Wisdom. It's all there. Later on, heretics began to rip it out of the Bible. So it's not God's fault. That's man's own doing. But God gave us prophets, and He gave us holy texts to teach us the way. It's very simple. I'm talking in a very low tone voice right now because that's just the mood I'm in right now. I'm not really, I don't know, not really in a crazy mood right now. Let's see here. What else do you guys want to talk about? It's been about 2 hours. Goodbye in Jesus' name. All right. See you later, Chico Vato. Love from Belgium. Hold on. Are you Belgian or are you like Hispanic? Because your name is Chico Vato, which sounds like you're from East LA. Are you from East LA and are you living in Belgium or what? Anyway, I've never been to. God bless you, Christ is King. Yeah, I think I'm done for tonight. I think we're good. I've been here for 2 hours. España, Italian. Oh, very cool. I was in Italy last year, so I think that's pretty. It's a very pretty country, although it's kind of depressing. Do you see nuance in the statement "God hates cowards"? Do I see nuance? I know that in the Bible it says the coward will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. So definitely cowardice is a sin. How do I see nuance in the statement? I mean, I guess by nuance, I would say that there are situations where running away, being a coward doesn't necessarily mean running away. Even Jesus ran away in certain instances. But I would say that a coward is someone who's terrified of confronting evil when it needs to be confronted. So, yeah, the coward will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. Thoughts on Norman Finkelstein? I actually have a couple of books written by Norman Finkelstein. I've watched a lot of his debates. I've listened to a lot of his interviews. I would say that Finkelstein is correct on a lot of the things that he says, especially about the settlers. The settlers are fanatics. I would say the problem with Finkelstein is that he sympathizes too much with Hezbollah. And that's enough to be very suspicious of him. He sympathizes with a terrorist organization. The guy reads the sermons of Nasrallah, so the guy is nuts. But as far as his scholarship goes regarding the settlers and the settlements, and yeah, I would say that's legit. He makes very legitimate arguments. EU is full Islam cult, and the Church of Christ is not strong in EU. I would say the EU is just a big German money grab. It's a way for Germany to control the other European countries, especially the southern European countries. I think eventually the EU is going to transform into just one giant German-led pan-European bloc, especially now with the British not being there any longer. Indeed. Yeah, you're Italian, so you know this. When I was in Italy, everything there was made in Germany. The toilets were made in Germany. The shower was made in Germany. The subway was made in Germany. The escalator was made in Germany. Everything there is made in Germany because the Germans control it. German industry dominates the EU. The EU is a German-led Reich. It's a German-controlled Reich. The money is controlled by Germany. Even before the creation of the euro, it was the German mark, the Deutsche Mark, that dictated the value of all the other European currencies. So yeah, Germany definitely is the power holder within the EU. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, if there's no more other questions, probably should get going. And I'll give you guys 5 more minutes. How about that? 5 more minutes. Let's see. Only German 4 million Turkey. Okay. I'd like to have Theodore on our show one day. What's your show? What's your show? What kind of show do you have? Is it like a Catholic show or like a traditionalist channel or whatever? I mean, if you want to invite me on, just let me know when, and you can send me your information. Oh, you're a Catholic channel. I mean, I wouldn't mind coming on if you want to have me on. Just go on my Facebook page, Theodore Ted Schubot. There's an inbox there, and just write me when and where you would like to, when and how you would like to connect, and we can set something else, set something up. Are you going to take the experimental vaccine? Probably not. Will you be doing a live with Sam Shamoon in the coming weeks? Probably, yeah. He's been pretty open about me having me on his show, so I don't really mind. I enjoy talking with him. What's so surreal is that Sam and I used to be enemies, like we hated each other, and now we're friends and we're talking to each other, and it's just very surreal experience when you have someone who had a lot of hatred against you, and now he's, you know, and the amazing thing about it is that he came to me, you know, he wrote to me telling me that he had changed, and I found that to be so surreal and so profound. Okay, see you later, Delawana. The thing is that Sam Shamoon, you know, he went through a journey. You know, he went through a journey, and in that journey, he saw that a lot of the things that he was believing wasn't true. My point is that people need to convince themselves. People need to go through the journey of investigation and research and come to the truth themselves. I don't believe in this idea of like going to people and telling them that they're wrong. You could say, well, the apostles, they were missionaries, and they were, but they were living in a time when no one knew about Christ, no one knew about Christianity, no one knew about the true God. That was a different time. Nowadays, we're living in an era where everyone has the internet, everyone has an iPhone, everyone has all the libraries of the world in their cell phone, and everyone's heard all the arguments. So what's the point of me going to them? People need to come to the truth themselves. We're no longer living in the era of evangelization. We're not living in this era where people, need to be taught things. People need to be convinced. We're living in an era where people have the resources to find the truth themselves. I'm only here to help those who are either already convinced or want to be convinced. And again, I'm not going to people, oh, you have to listen to me. Like, I'm up here on YouTube. If you want to listen to me, listen to me. If you don't, then you don't have to. Would you do a Q&A with voice call through Discord like you did before? Eventually, I'm just going to have to get StreamShare, and I'll do it through that. I think through StreamShare is a better quality program than Discord. Discord's got way too many glitches. And every time I get on Discord, my internet slows down so badly. Change is good, bro. I was ex-Muslim and my way back to the Lord Jesus. Oh, very nice. What happened to your older stuff? I love the videos where you set the record straight on the Duggars. Then the mob came after you. YouTube took all those videos down. I still have those videos in my database, in my software. I'm just going to have to re-upload them. It'll take hours to do that. What happened to your... Okay. You were a Mexican Muslim? No, he says he's Italian Spanish, or he lived in Spain or something. Or he's from Spain. Chico, are you... Are you a convert? Were you a convert to Islam, or were you born Muslim? What's your opinion on Dr. Taylor Marshall? Man, when you guys ask me, when you guys ask me these questions, oh my God, like, I got to be honest with you guys, but the answer I'm going to give you guys may not be what you like. I don't trust Taylor Marshall. I'll be real with you guys. I don't trust him. Just don't trust him. The way that there was that Austrian guy who threw the Pachamama into the river, and then it turned out that this dude was doing some work with the AFD, and Taylor Marshall took this guy and promoted him hardcore. And it could be that Marshall is just deceived, but it could be that Marshall is just looking for, he's looking for that guy who's going to help him get views. And maybe that Austrian guy was that good resource for him. But when I saw that, I'm just like, I don't trust this dude. I listen, I've fallen into this sort of deception before. I interviewed a guy from Civitas who ended up being a complete Nazi. Civitas is a right-wing party in France, and the dude ended up being a complete Nazi. And you know what? I learned my lesson, not dealing with those people ever again. But the thing is that Taylor Marshall, he's probably heard this before, that this Austrian guy was part of the AFD or was doing work with the AFD. And I don't think he really cares. That's the thing, because that Austrian guy is a good resource for him to get views. I don't like Taylor Marshall. Oh, so tell me why. Why don't you like him? I'd be interested to know your perspective. Oh, you were Catholic, so you converted to Islam then. That's crazy. What about Timothy Gordon? I don't know. It just seems to me that he's too much into this idea of like American nationalist Catholicism, and I don't know. I find that kind of stuff strange. To me, Catholicism is universal, and I don't really like the idea of making a religion a part of your national identity, because then the religion becomes a tool for your nationalism, and that's just dangerous, really. Thoughts on street preacher Ruben Israel? I've actually spoken to Ruben Israel several times. I did a documentary. Ruben Israel has a street preaching partner by the name of Jeremiah de los Santos. I think Jeremiah de los Santos is a great guy. I never had any issues with him. Ruben Israel is problematic because he will take statues of the Virgin Mary and break them in front of people. And then when Catholics confront him and say, hey, this is why you're wrong, Ruben Israel will straight up just insult those people to their faces. So they're really, the problem that I have with Ruben Israel is that he says things that are true and he does good things in certain cases. But when you go to Catholics who are very, generally speaking, Catholics are very nice people. Catholics are very gentle people. I mean, for the most part, they are. It's, you know, from my experience with them, I've had disputes with Catholics and I've met some very nasty Catholics. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, Catholics are very gentle people. They don't like to be nasty, generally speaking. And for Ruben Israel just to go to these people and just shatter the statue of the Virgin Mary in front of them, and then when they actually try to talk to you and you straight up insult them in front of their faces, that's not teaching. That's not preaching. That's just provocation. And that's something that I'm not interested in. What do you think about Christians in Eritrea? And I haven't really looked into them. Aren't they? Are they more orthodox? I don't know. I have to look more into them. Do you watch Michael Lofton and William Albright on Reason and Theology? I've heard of William Albright. I believe he debated James White, and I actually intend on watching that interview in its completion. If they can, there's a nuance needed. Okay. Women should stay at home. I mean, if you can get your wife to be a housewife, God bless you. I don't really have an issue with that. You have all these nerdy dudes on the internet who are like, I want my wife to stay home. And they, in their heads, they have like this babe model chick and they're like these nerdy dudes and they're kind of living in a fantasy. But if they can get it, and God bless them, all power to them. Doesn't really bother me. So let's see. It's been 2 hours. I enjoy talking with you guys. It's hard for me just to disconnect, I enjoy the conversation. I was ignorant in the Bible and I have been baptized again. I mean, that's great that you left Islam. I'm glad that you did. Islam is not very appealing to Westerners. That's the thing. It's not appealing. It's just not. It's why it's never succeeded in the Western world. It never will. Islam will never succeed in the Western world. Once in a while, you have some crazy people in America or Europe who convert to Islam, but a lot of them leave. A lot of them go. They leave Islam. Most of them don't make it because it's just contrary to the Western mind. Got to wear a hijab. You got to put a veil on. I don't want to do that. It's not something that's compatible to. I'll be honest with you. It's not something that's compatible to white people. It's just not. White people don't like it. I don't blame them, but they don't like it. And I'm not singling out white people because Islam would never work in South America. Islam would never work in the Spanish-speaking world for the same reasons. It's just not compatible. You think a Brazilian woman wants to wear a curtain around her body? Check out Lloyd DeJong's channel on Islam. All right, then. I think I'm done. I'll let you guys go. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night, and God bless y'all. All right, peace. I'm out. God bless.